top of mind for New Zealanders, at least according to the media, is youth crime and ram raids. But when I speak to most people, there's a deeper understanding that crime is a symptom of broader societal dissonance. The risk factors for a life of crime and incarceration are well studied and well known, yet it feels like we haven't figured out how to prevent it yet. Or at least we haven't accepted that we need to keep doing the interventions that work and stop doing the interventions that don't. On this episode, I'm joined by Sully Paea, member of the New Zealand Order of Merit for his services to youth work. He's an iconic fixture in Otara who has not only seen it all, but lived it. Thank you so much for coming on this podcast, Sully. So you're a bit of an icon in Otara in the youth workspace, and you're a very, very busy man. What is it that drives you to do all the work that you do?
Well, first of all, Nina, thank you for having me. Good to be in your podcast this morning. And I love telling my story.
Oh, very good. We love hearing it.
I love the journey that I'm on. And that's why I wear my canoe on my. I'm on the canoe journey. I'm on that journey, and
there's no rush to get to the destination, is there?
Yeah. So, telling a story, telling our story, and that's something that is passionate to me. So, yeah. What do I do? Why do I do what I do? A lot of people ask me that question. I guess. At one time of my life, I was trying to find myself. I was so lost, absolutely. My background, I grew up very lost, not in a very good environment. A lot of abuse and suffer from a whole lot of abuse, and physically, mentally, sexually. I was a pretty messed up kid. So I didn't have a very good background to start off with in life. And so that messed me up right up until my late teen years. In my early 20s, I think at the point in my life where I was so lost, I just don't want to live anymore. You know, you get to a point where, is this it? There's nothing more to life. It just doesn't seem to satisfy that hole. It's like a hole inside you that don't seem to fill. No amount of alcohol, no amount of money, no amount of anything that will fill that gap. It's just always there. And so I just couldn't find it. And I came to a point where, and I think that's where I had a spiritual encounter that changed my life dramatically from that point right through to this day. So
what happened with this spiritual encounter?
Well, I grew up in a church environment, but I did not understand anything about God and Jesus and the Bible and all that religious stuff. I never understand. I never see it, but I knew that there was something there. And it was in the time when I know that I just could not find, it was just in a dead end, that I don't want to live anymore. I had an encounter with what I believe, I had a bad dream, that I am going to go to hell and burn in hell for the rest of my life, and that's how it's going to be. I woke up freaking out and thought, this is not good. And not understanding all these things. I thought, what was that all about? But I remember the whole song that I used to sing when I was in Sunday school. It says, Jesus loves me, this I know, for the Bible tells me so. So I thought, well, if Jesus really loves me, please do something because I don't want to live anymore.
So what was life like? Because you just moved to New Zealand when you were around 18, is that right?
I came here with my grandfather because he told me that it's the land of milk and honey, and I was trying to find where that milk and honey is, and I just found Lion Red and whiskey and rum and girls and rock and roll, and that put me in a path to fast forward it to a dark place. I became an alcoholic. Drink 7 days a week, pay on Thursday, broke on Friday, borrow on Saturday, steal for the rest of the week to make it to the next payday.
And just, in early adulthood, eh?
So it was just the life that continuously, day in, day out.
How did that happen?
Well, the environment that I live in, that was what they live for. Lots of alcohol. And so I just dragged into that midst, and that's all they knew. And that's all I knew. There was nothing else. So until I have that encounter, that I decided I want to change. I want to find something. I want to find that peace. And it was through understanding about God and God's love for me, and that changes my life. And from that day onwards, it was a what is
180?
180 degree turnaround that I decided to. Yeah, and it changed. I couldn't stop drinking. I couldn't stop all the things that I do. I couldn't, but it was a supernatural power and love of God that changed me, took away all that and gave me something. And that was the beginning of my journey, and trying to find myself. And to a point where I knew that this is my calling in life, is to work with youth in Otara. And so 1979 was the year that I decided that's what I'm going to do. So I just walked down on the street and met up with a group of kids. They were not going to school. They were wagging school, playing Space Invader games back in that era, in the 70s, early 80s. And so I connect up with them and discuss and talk about it. So I saw myself in them. So that draws me in. That was the beginning of my love for youth. And so we decided to do something, and so we built from there, gradually built from no money, nothing but a vision and a dream to connect with youth. And so we built that small group up to a point where we acquired a building, we acquired a facility where we established it, become a center, focus point where youth meets up, and become a great point of contact for all of us, with contact with youth. And that was the beginning of my youth working there in 1979. And sadly, fast forwarded to how many years later? Today, I still see the same problem, but it's escalated even more.
Worse. Things have gotten worse.
It's gotten worse. And that's the sad part for me.
Has it always gotten worse? Or has it, have there been moments in time?
There were a point of time that I remember that there were, according to the police, because, we connect with the police, they told us that, to our organization, that the way you guys are going, we are not going to continue our fundings because there's no problem. There's no more problem. Because the police noticed the change in the community. And that was because we have a lot of youth workers on the street. They were out there on the schools, in the alleyways. They would connect after hours. There were youth workers out there connecting with youth. So there's no room for them to get into
right,
mischief.
So you're saying because crime went down, they thought crime's not a problem.
The police said it's so quiet.
It's so quiet. Why is there no problem?
That's what they said.
And then they said, I guess we don't need to fund these organizations anymore?
Right. That's exactly right.
Oh, my goodness.
And so that's how the fundings eventually was taken away, because of the fact that there was no more crime. See, that was one of the biggest issues and the biggest mistake that they made.
When did that happen?
This was happening in 2016, I think, 2016, 17. The other thing also is when changes of government. One government comes in and establishes all this stuff, and good stuff, and then another government comes in and they cut the fundings because they don't need it anymore. So there was no consistency. But for us, we know exactly what needed to be done in our community because we live there. We know our kids. And,
so is that one of the struggles? Is that for community groups such as your community group? Is that the funding is so inconsistent that you don't know what funding you're going to get in the next financial year or budget or whatever?
You don't know. You're not sure if you're going to be funded for the next year. So you're just living on that. 3 years you got contract, but after that, you don't know. Because
I find that really tricky because, like you say, governments come and go, but the communities are still there, right? And then so it's hard when your funding is, on a whim, I guess.
Exactly. That's exactly the issue. And the issue is that there's no consistency and there's not enough, and also funding the right organization, because a lot of money had been wasted into organizations that are just pen pushers and ticking boxes and do exactly what the government does. For us, for our organization, we operate outside of the box. I made it clear when when I met with them, and I said, this is how we do things. You've seen our track record. You fund us and get lost. We will make you look good. I said, we know what we do. We know exactly how to deal with the issues, and that's exactly what we did.
So what's the out-of-the-box way that your organisation works?
Well, there are a lot of restrictions, the things that you can't do this, and you can't do that, and you can't do that.
Like what? What can't you do?
Well, I'll give, for instance, I started the alternative education in New Zealand.
You started it?
I started at the back of our base. There were a group of kids that are wagging school from Hillary College. Every day they were at the back there. So I thought I'd go down and hang out with them and check and see what's going on. And so we got talking, and I asked them, I said, if I start a school, would you come? They said, yes, we'll come to your school. No problem. And that's exactly
what was it
happened.
about it, you starting a school that they were like, yeah, we'll come?
Well, I took them in there, into my building, and, I gave them food, and we chat, we talk about
food. That's probably quite key.
And I ask them why. Why don't they want it? And they tell me. They tell me their reasons. And yeah, they have good enough reasons.
What were the reasons?
One is that one of the students says, I have I think it was an Indian teacher that he doesn't understand his English. And he just couldn't be bothered. And he doesn't ask questions, so he just go with the flow. And but he said he just couldn't understand. But a lot of them are, the others are just, they don't want to go to school. Hate the school, don't want to go to school. They just go to school to please their parents, but they go into the school, signed up, and disappear. So they were at the back of my building, and that's how I brought them in, and we talk and connect, told them who I am and told them what I do. And so I said, seriously, if I start a school, would you come? And straight away, they said, we'll come. And sure enough, we started a school. I talked to my friend who was a school teacher at the time, and I said, can I get you to volunteer some time of your teaching? So she volunteered an afternoon, 3 afternoons a week. And
wow, that's a lot.
Yeah, so she for free. So we established a school there. The school found out where these students come from, and they came, and I got into trouble. And I love it. So
you do seem like a bit of a troublemaker.
Yeah, they said they want to know, and when they come in, they see these students with their books reading, and I said, how did you get them to see
the naughty kids, right?
They don't do that in the school. But over here, look at them. He couldn't believe. So he couldn't bother to come and check anymore, because before that he was coming with the van, pick them up, and take them to Hillary College, and they just go in, show their faces,
and they come out,
then disappeared again. And so they eventually send the education department found out, and they send a retired principal from Tangaroa College. Jim, what's the name? He came and did a feasibility study, and it took about 6 months, and then it became the education department decided to establish a alternative education.
Oh, geez! Wow, I can't believe. So you basically created it.
We created and so.
When was that?
It started from. This is in 96, 97, 98. Yeah. And so it became nationally. The sad thing is, it went back to the same place that it failed in the first place. And so everything has gone back into the school system that it failed in.
In what way?
Everything has gone back into the way they do things. And so they boxed it in, and eventually I don't know where it is now. But I'm in the process of doing the same thing. I want to reestablish a school because there's so many kids that are not going to school, more so than back then.
Because what do you think about this new government is coming back in, and ACT Party have a bit more sway this time, and they're big into charter schools. Would that fit into a charter school model, or would it just be more like alternative education?
I think we create in our community. I'm speaking for Otara. I'd like to create our own system how we see it from our perspective and our community. A lot of our kids are practical. They do things in a practical sense. They learn and understand more in the workshop, because that's how I used to learn. So I'm doing something that I would have loved someone to do back in my time. I failed everything in the classroom. But if in the practical environment, I learned faster, understand more of the English and the maths and everything else in the hands-on. So I felt like at times I think with my hands. I can understand and click. So you need to have more of the on-the-job training, more practical, and doing things and creating things and learning in that process. And I'm doing that now in a small group of kids that come to my place. They come to fix their bikes. So I teach them, I show them. And in the midst of that, we learn and understand the English language, the science, the maths. All that is all built into all the practical stuff that we learn. Makes it fun. And then you'll hear them talking about it. You hear the kids talking about how fun it is. And it's not until you touch that the brain begin to kick in to understand all these things. So I would like to do it differently and more connect with the environment we live in and learning and understanding the climate that we live in and understand life skills. And we don't do enough with that.
I guess one of the things that I kind of wanted to touch on, really, is about fatherhood in this podcast as well. So obviously you've got your own children, your own biological children that you're very much a father of. But, you know, I guess you're also a bit of a father or a grandfather figure, as you said,
Yes.
to a lot of the young people in the community through your work in the past. And, you know, I'm sure a lot of those young people are, you know, fathers themselves or, you know, mothers themselves now and as they've gotten older. What are you like noticing for like young people like today? Because I guess one of the things that we're concerned about is that in modern age, you know, a lot of children are growing up, you know, without fathers, or, you know, in a single parent household. You know, in New Zealand, we have, you know, big problems with, you know, the justice system, especially for Māori and Pacifica people. And, you know, we know from, you know, the stats is that, you know, a child who has at least one parent incarcerated, you know, has somewhere between 5 and 9 times the risk of being incarcerated themselves. And I guess part of it is, you know, is it because, you know, a lot of them end up having fatherlessness for a time because most likely it's the father that's gone to jail. And obviously if, you know, the conditions surrounding whatever happened to that father ending up into the jail system is probably similar living conditions for those kids as well in terms of, you know, economic and, you know, community, you know, issues, right?
We see the fruit of that now with young men that are growing up without fathers. And sometimes their grandparents are there, but they're not there for those who don't have anyone or an uncle maybe. But majority of them that are grown up in a solo mom parents. And so they basically grow up with the role models are gangs, selling drugs, and so they're very, very disconnected. And I see that all the time, and it's something that, and it's never going to slow down either. Continue to see more and more young men, in particular, growing up with just mum or not even mum. I see many that are on the street, that have grown up on the street at a younger age and continue on to a life of crime, ram raids, and so nothing is done from that younger age. So the cycle will continue. And again, it goes back to educating and teaching and learning and understanding about the importance of fathers. Because I don't know, I mean, how do you learn to be a father? Because a lot of these kids that I know, that they're having children at a young age, and no responsibility. They just take off. And so, yeah, that's a huge problem. Fatherless. We're looking at the fatherless generation. That sometimes some of the youth that I work with, they're already too far gone. But, catching them at younger age and journey with them, because definitely the importance of fatherhood. Yeah, that's a big issue for me.
Yeah.
That's a big issue.
Can I ask you a little bit more about, I guess, your time when you just moved to New Zealand? Because I understand that, in that really dark time for you, you were also part of a gang yourself as well. Is that right? The Stormtroopers?
Yeah. For me, it was just it's an era where I was looking for something. Like I said before, I have that emptiness in me that I want to find something that'll fill that. And so when I met up with the group of friends, they were drinking, they were drunk, they were having, everything that I was looking for, I thought it was. And so I decided, hey, that looks good. So I joined in.
Because I guess it's that sense of community.
Yeah, connect.
Belonging.
Yeah, belonging is a big one. Because you want to be a part of this group, and you want to be somebody, and acceptance and camaraderie, and we do a lot of things together, So I get caught up in that, only to discover that this does not fulfill my desire, does not fill my emptiness. In fact, it just escalates to even more darker. And so I decided this is not for me. It was time to move on, and I was searching, trying to find that something that I was looking for that I was missing. So,
and were you able to bring any of your friends from that gang out of it as well?
Yeah, some I influence to move on into their own journey, but yeah, a lot of them have moved on, but I'd like to think that my influence has taken them in a direction where they can find themselves. Because, at the time, they knew me before I changed. They knew me when I was an alcoholic, gangster, drinker, womanizer, you name it. They knew me then, and then they knew me now. I said, are you that same person then? I said, I've changed. I've decided that's not for me. I found something even better. So, some has influence.
And how are you finding it now? Because, in terms of young people who are on that trajectory to, joining gangs and crime and stuff, how are you finding it in terms of trying to get those kids off that journey?
Well, that has been my life. I want to be an influence to show them that there is another way, that they don't need to be in that environment to ride a Harley, that there is a way. And so I live my life right in that environment where they'll see me, I'm there, and also earn enough respect to be able to speak into their lives and show them and tell them, there is a better way. You don't have to go through that way. So I've tried that and it didn't work. I tried that and that's what it done. I also go to prison and I speak in prison and I see. I said, I could have been there, but because I made the choice to make that turn. And I hear them talking and say, I wish I'd listened to you.
When they say, I wish I'd listened to you, if you could, I guess, speak to your, 18, 19-year-old self now, right? What would you tell yourself? Yeah,
many times I've said, I wish I'm 18 again, because it's exactly what I'm going to do, what I would do. I said, number one on top of the list for me is to be able to get educated. Education is top for me. It'll take you in the right direction. because go down in that direction of education. Don't go down that road because you'll end up in prison. In the direction of family, I got married. I had 3 beautiful kids, and the little part of it is the spiritual aspect of my life that is very difficult to many people. But I chose that because it worked for me. It changes my life totally, inside out. The whole me. I'm not the same person that I used to be. An 18-year-old, I'll tell them, I said, look at your hands. The path that you want to go is in your hands. Yeah. So number one for me is education. And I remember talking to a group of year 10, I think, and I told them exactly that.
I think education, when done right, and when accessible, is the great leveler. It's the thing that gets people the opportunities.
Well, that's top for me. Is that what would you do different? And that's why I want to reestablish the alternative school. That's why I want to establish a school again, and connect with kids who don't want to go to school.
That's the thing, right? There's a huge concern at the moment for youth who are not going to school at the moment.
And there's so many of them.
I think something like it's only like a third of Māori kids are actually regularly attending school, and that's hugely concerning.
Oh,
so,
absolutely.
what are you seeing in Otara at the moment?
Oh, exactly the same that. I mean, I see it all the time, every day. And so, wonder why is it? Yep, sure enough. And you go and talk to them. Yeah, don't want to go to school. Hate school.
Do you think the only way is to create an alternative school, or is there a way that we can get kids more engaged in mainstream school?
If they decided not to go to school because they don't like the teacher, that's it. Is
it really as simple as that? They don't like the teacher and they won't go to school?
Well, it's more than that. The bullying and the fighting, and there's a lot of issues on top of that. A lot of kids feel insecure, and they don't feel comfortable. They don't feel safe. So they just don't want to go to school. When you don't want to go to school and you get into that frame of mind of school sucks, you're lost. So you need to make some changes and look at doing something differently. I'm in a process now. I'm working with a friend in Otara she recognized the same need, and so she's starting to do something. So I'm working with her. And so we're doing gardening at the moment. A young boy.
Gosh, you're doing so much stuff. Okay, gardening. You're doing gardening. Tell me more.
Well, it's not just gardening, because I realize I discover the value of gardening is so important for our mind, body, and spirit. I took on a gentleman who was on parole, and he stayed with us for about 5-6 months. I got him gardening. When he left, he said, I'm going to take that with me because I never realized that garden can speak to you.
You sure he wasn't doing
this? He said, I never realized that the gardening can do this to you. He said, because his garden was right there. We were really nice, luscious. So he had fresh veggies all the time.
I really agree with it. Like, I asked you to come out, this entrance, because our back entrance is super messy because of all my gardening. And I'm like, I reckon I spent quite a bit of money on buying plants and soil and all of this kind of stuff. And I'm like, I don't think I will have grown enough tomatoes and chilies to cover the expenses. But whatever.
Yeah. Well, hearing it from this gentleman, I said he's not a gardener, but he said that's one thing he's going to take with him. He said, I'm going to be doing gardening. I said he never realized that plants can speak to you.
But there's also something about, growing something from really small to really big, right? And that's why my house is also full of, house plants as well. I love growing things.
So what I do now is I do gardening, but with the kids. I go into families and, one of my projects at the moment is I go into families and do gardening with them. But the condition is that the kids has got to be involved. So I supply everything and the condition is that the kids will be involved. And in that, they learn the science of growing, learn about agriculture, it's an education project. And so I asked them about the vocabulary of gardening and vegetables and stuff. So, you bring in the spelling and you bring in the English and everything is all there. and then they learn about the history and the how do you grow and worms and stuff. There's a whole lot to learn.
I think that's the thing, is that we've lost a lot of this like intergenerational knowledge. We don't pass it on as much. We don't have this whole grandparent to child like relationship as strongly as previous generations. I was talking to someone the other day, and they said that like in Singapore, for example, apparently if you live within 500 meters of your parents, if you're an adult and you live within 500 meters of your parent, or I don't know what age, maybe it's to do with like grandparents or whatever, but you get like a quite big tax rebate because they recognize that there's a social investment to be made. There's if you live within 500 meters to your older parents, then there's like health benefits for them, and then presumably if you've got children, then there's like health benefits like for the children and the grandparents if there's a better connection with the two of them. And I'm like, that's crazy.
And that's how things work. That's something, the whole family unit, the grandparents, the importance of, and I recognize that now, the importance of having a family unit together and connecting with the grandparents has a lot of knowledge that pass on to the grandkids. So there's so much in it that we've lost, so breaking off and forgotten, and it's just the importance of the family unit, the grandparents, their role. But yeah, back to gardening. There's something in the soil that when you get your hands dirty, it feels, you may not like it. Some people don't like it, but at the end of the day, when you're in it, you breathe in all that good oxygen and
but I feel like you're not supposed
mentally.
you're not supposed to handle the soil with your bare hands. But every time I try with like gardening gloves, I'm like, oh, this doesn't feel
it's
right.
Not the same.
It's not the same.
It's not the same until you get your hands
like
dirty.
Warning signs like on the the packets of like potting mix being like, please use with the garden thing, and like stay away when you're going to open it because you could inhale something. And I'm like, God, this is too much red tape here.
Oh, exactly. That's exactly. It's just that everything is all gone into
health and safety gone mad.
So, but I have seen how gardening works for kids because, they learn stuff, and I want to make sure that they learn the shovel, the spade, the tools that you use for gardening. All they need to understand all that. So that's my reason of doing gardening. But also, it provides veggies for family. And every family should have a garden because a lot of them has a lot of space. So I'm encouraging that, and that's one of the things that I want to.
What are the easiest veggies to grow in a garden from your point of view?
Well, the easiest, the one that harvests the fastest would be the bok choy, tomatoes, tomatoes, lettuce, spring onions, things that they eat, and the difference and the taste. I mean, they said this is so good. Carrots, stuff that they can pick and eat, so.
Is there like what's a little pro tip for gardening that, people, starting off like don't realize, but, it's really important?
A lot of families straight away, I don't do gardening. I don't like gardening. I don't like getting my hands dirty. So I focus on there's got to be someone in the family that is open to that. So I hone in on that person. And it's always the kids. They're always the kids that, I'll do garden. So, but the adults sometimes kind of lay backers. And because they're not used to gardening, they don't grow up with gardening. But the kids are willing to learn. So that's where I work with the kids. And then once the family see the veggies, the attitude will change. But that's getting over that hurdle of encouraging to get garden, because a lot of the adults say, nah, I'm too busy for gardening. I don't have for gardening. I'm not very good at gardening. I can't grow anything, which is not the truth. That would be my tip. Is I'd have to journey with them and hold them in the hand and say, let's go. We will all do it together. I don't know if that answers your question.
My dad tells me a lot of stuff about like veggie gardens, and I don't always listen. So I should probably try and get more, intergenerational knowledge of my dad.
The main important thing is the water, to make sure that it's all water. There's access to water, and that water can. The plants need water. If you don't eat, if you don't drink, what happens? You'll starve. So it's exactly the same as the plants. I said, if they don't get food, If they don't get water, the sun will wither them and they'll die quickly. So I said, so plants is just like you. So
yeah, I got my friend a plant for a birthday the other day. So, some would say it's a great gift. Some would say, is it just extra responsibility? And I say, why not both,
That's what a lot of people say. It's just extra responsibility. Yeah.
I want to ask you, I want to talk to you a little bit more about, what we'd been chatting about before recording the podcast, which was about your work with canoes.
Yeah, that's my new journey.
Of your many.
5 years, yep. 5 years ago, I decided to really get into a little bit more seriously because I grew up in an environment when I was a child, 8, 9, 10 years old, with people who build canoes. And all I can hear is thump, thump, thump of the people chopping logs. And not only that, but I hear laughing and conversation, and at times I just kind of sneak around and just hang around and watch these men having fun. Look like they're having fun, discussing about things and laughing about stuff and building canoes. And in the midst of all that, I hear conversation about the weather for fishing. When the coconut leaves begin to dance in a certain way, and you hear that sound, that means a good weather for fishing. There's other things that they discuss about. So they look at the clouds and read the clouds and say, good fishing tomorrow. And I was listening to all the conversation and said, well, it didn't really mean much to me back then. But it was years later that I began to hear those voices and understand. And so I decided to get into the canoes and start building canoe models to learn and understand a little bit more about our history and our culture. It's our DNA. And discover myself from there and gradually build it to a point where it has now become very much a part of me. So that's my new journey, is building canoes, all the canoes of the Pacific, as my way of connecting with different ethnic groups and in understanding and learning about their history and their culture, and including Maori. Because, there's so much, I've discovered that there's so much that we can learn from our ancestors and about who we are, where we are today, and how to move forward. So the learning.
Sometimes I wonder about that when we were talking about that with like my own ancestry. So, my parents came from China,
right.
And I knew my mum's parents. So my grandmother on my mother's side passed away a few years ago, and my grandfather's still alive, but he's back in China now. And I grew up with them a lot when I was younger. But my dad's parents, passed away long before I was born, so I never got to meet them. And I think about what's been lost in terms of like ancestry and intergenerational knowledge. Yeah. Because I think one of the greatest shames in like Chinese history, and I know that like current Chinese people, like people in China or whatever, probably don't think about it in the same way because a lot of influence from my own father. But, through a lot of what has happened with the Cultural Revolution and Great Leap Forward in China is that we lost so much history and so much knowledge. And, my dad told me that this kind of thing of like sort of erasing history, erasing knowledge like happened like frequently in Chinese history. And I just think, it's such a shame because there's so much of that intergenerational knowledge. And I'm like, who am I? I guess like, I'm a descendant of like Chinese people, but I don't really know like my ancestry history much beyond, my grandparents basically.
Yeah. And we've lost a lot, but for us Pacific people, I realize, they're not going to understand because when I left Niue. I burned my bridges pretty much. I blew up my bridge. I don't want nothing to do with that. I'm off chasing the bright lights and the good life of Otara, and left my culture. When I had children, I decided, no, I'm not going to teach them anything about my culture and the language. But I look back at it now with a deep regret. I absolutely regret it dearly. And that happens when I went back to Niue. My son, he went for a visit with some family members. And when he came back, he brags about it. He talks about it. He was all, that's all he can hear. So I thought, what's happened? So he said to me, Dad, you should go. And I said, well...
How long had it been since you'd been back?
30
really? So you came back,
Yeah.
came to New Zealand, you'd never gone back, really?
Yeah, no, like I said, I want nothing to do with it. So I said, well, I can't afford you pay my airfare, and so he paid my airfare, and I went with him. And as soon as I land, something happened. It's like that spiritual connecting where I belong, came and got hold of me. So ever since then, I decided to go back every year for a couple of months, and reconnect and regain back what I had lost, and realize that what I was looking for was right there.
So I think we all underestimate, our connection to our culture and our ancestry, because that is something that I feel like was probably missing for me, I guess, because I still have the language in terms of like Mandarin Chinese, but I don't have a lot of connection to my culture, and personally I find it difficult to connect with people like Chinese people who've just come to the country. I find that really difficult, and I mean part of it's probably like an assimilation coping mechanism for me, growing up in New Zealand, having to sort of assimilate to the local culture. It means at the cost of, my own culture. There are little things like, I don't remember all the different festivals that, Chinese people, celebrate apart from, Chinese New Year. And there are a lot of foods that like, I don't really eat. And yet my partner who's, New Zealand European will eat. And there is a little bit like, I don't know, I guess, dissonance. Something that doesn't feel quite right. And I'm lucky that I have a really good connection with my parents, so I don't have real problems with that. But there's that whole feeling of like not fitting in a little bit. And I guess I want to ask you a bit more about the canoeing, the canoe carving actually that you're doing with young people.
Well, I think, like I said, it happens. When I went to New York, I decided to make some, and felt that I've got something. And so I kept going and developed it to a point where it is now. It's become a thing now. It's taken over pretty much. I'm hooked. I love the art of the Pacific that sadly, in some cases, is slowly disappearing. And so I'm going back into the past to find some of them and reconnect again. So I'm at my mission now is to be able to reduplicate some of that and bring it to today, and also talk about our history and our culture individually, our ethnic group. I have a Samoan, Tongan, Niuean background, very strong in the history of the Pacific. And so I'm beginning to learn about how do they get there and the journeys that they had. This is long before the explorers, modern explorers came, Captain Cook, and when they came, they saw a whole lot of that was going on.
As in like the mixing and
the document, and there was a lot of training. There was a lot of traveling from island to island, and so they documented a lot of them, and also brought a lot of the some of the canoe designs that are copied and duplicated today. And so my interest was actually and from the art perspective, and to see how creative they have been, and to build these huge machines that travel with no tools. That was my interest in how do they do that.
So how do they do it?
Yeah, interesting. I mean, are
you doing it? Are you still using chainsaws? Or?
Oh my goodness! Just the thought of having to use tools that are made of stone axe, tools that are made of shells or anything, or bones or anything that is sharp, and there's so much creativity in that. And I mean, there's no way. There's no way. No, just the thought of having, how do they chop this big, humongous tree down to build a canoe? and traveled
Well,
all
they
the way
did
from Hawaii to Otara. Tell me about that one. And it's just these things weren't accident. They weren't the traveling of the Pacific people weren't. They were crisscrossing the Pacific.
They had GPS before GPS.
The only GPSs they have is the stars. Know exactly how to travel from their place to this place. And I was told when Captain Cook's one of the men that Captain Cook brought from Hawaii to travel with him, he told Captain Cook that's the direction where they go. But they were depending, and they ended up exactly in the same place where this man had. He knew the knowledge by reading the stars.
I think some people I think some people have better, like, what's the word, like a sense of direction, right? Like, I think I have a pretty good idea of where north is at most times because it's all in relation to, like, where the sun is at the time of the day, right? And, you know, there are some cultures around the world, I can't remember where it was, but I remember hearing there's some culture in the world where instead of having, like, left and right in their normal conversation, they talk about, like, north, south, east and west. So they don't say, oh, this is my left leg, this is my west leg, or this is my, like, northeast leg, you know? And it's quite interesting because then it's built into their language. So they constantly talk about, you know, where is, like, which direction is what.
Well, I think with these guys, it was their life. It was their everyday living. They make a point to understand and know where they live and how to get around, because it's for their livelihood, for fishing.
Because Google Maps just kind of like dumbs us down, eh?
Yeah, it was just, I mean, they
can't get anywhere with that Google Maps.
They just look at the stars and say, yeah, that's the direction we were going, and you know, they can tell. And I guess that during that time there was no global warming. There was no issue with the weather pattern. They get to read and understand exactly how things were.
There wasn't a fish in the sea.
Yeah, exactly. And they know exactly where they get along and they get around amazingly. You know, there's so many stories that had been told of the Great Migration, and it's just incredible. This is long before the white man came. So I have embarked on that journey, and I want to take students that I work with to be able to see and learn and understand from our ancestors where they come from, and the creativity, the engineering, the mechanics, the science, everything. The GPS, they have GPS long before we have. Their GPS is the stars, and they be able to learn and read. You see, I understand that because when I was growing up, I listened to those conversations. When we go fishing, I have no idea. How do you know the tide is good? We went there, yeah, perfect. And that's because they read the environment. They read the birds and the clouds and the
moon.
So, yeah. So every time we go fishing, it's bang on. It's the sea's calm. It's just catch a lot of fish. And that's because they were connected. They understand. They knew exactly.
That symbiotic relationship with the environment.
They were connected with the environment. And they have to, because you know it's their livelihood, their well-being, their life. So, and they need to learn and understand. That, in our generation, we don't have that at all. We don't have any zero. We're just being led into, that's the direction we're going, and we're all going that way. So my journey with the canoes is to learn about our history and our culture and our DNA. That is our history. That is our DNA. And a lot of the families that I have worked with, and particularly now, they have no idea what their canoe look like until they see our product. The kids that I worked with the last 4 weeks, they took their canoes into their parents and click, you know, they connect and say, oh, that's what my grandfather used to make. So the conversation begins to talk about our history and and where we come from. So that's what the canoes are doing at the moment. That's why I'm
generating conversation.
Yeah. It's creating conversation to learn about our history.
You reckon you'll progress to making like a real lifestyle canoe? That's the plan.
The plan is
take it for a float.
Yeah.
Take it for a paddle.
Exactly, and create something that can be seen and used. that's the whole idea of it. And I want to use that as a rehabilitation for some of the kids that have been locked up. And so that's my next project next year.
Got a lot of projects,
put
man.
that in prison, so I've got that and the plan to work with a group of men in Wiri prison.
Because what are you noticing, with the kids that you are engaging?
Well, first I had to break down those walls. A lot of the kids have got walls around them that it's unless those walls are broken down, you won't be able to communicate. You won't be able to get through. And so I had to figure out how to break those walls down so we can be able to build those bridges. And
because some people might look at it and be like, oh, it's just some old fart coming along to exactly. Do some woodwork with kids. What is the value in this program, right? Like what is the hidden value that people might not see?
Yeah, well, that's the challenge that I face.
Because you got to pitch this idea, and it's all well and good, but on paper it's just some old guy who wants to build boats, right? But I guess how I'm seeing it and I'm picturing it. Obviously, I'm not there, but I guess it's more than just woodwork, right? It's something practical, but it's about how to connect with people in a way that's in terms of connecting with their culture.
Yeah, I think one of the advantages that I have is because the fact that I have lived and walked the talk and has journeyed with this for a long time. So they've seen me. Now I'm working with the generation of grandkids of those that I'd worked with. So I have a long standing in community, so they know who I am. And this year in particular, more so, it's the doors are wide open in front of me. And so everywhere I go, they want a piece of me.
I mean, you sound like a very busy man. So where do you get all of the funding for all the different programs that you're running?
The way I work, I do it first. In the past, we went to ask for some funds, but they looked at me and said, well, so the response hasn't been that good. So what I did was I've always done something first, and then I'll bring the funders in and I say, look, see what I've done? And straight away. That's because they see in front of them, they see what I do. And so they want to put money into something that is working.
Because I guess that's hard, is that I think a lot of people are held back by if we don't have funding, how do we do it? But I guess you're kind of doing, what you're kind of doing is saying, it's better to, beg for forgiveness than to ask for permission, right?
When I first initially started, it was funds was difficult. But once I got established, that's because I'm a practical person. They see things. They see what I do. They see what their money's gone into. And I'm ready to get some funds for my tools, to get my tools in, because I've got about 50 plus canoes already. And I got enough to fill this room up. So when they come and see that, straight away, and not only the canoes, but what it does and the program that goes with the canoes, it's huge.
We've talked a lot about fatherlessness and mentorship and, how you're kind of, I guess, a surrogate father for a lot of young people in the community. Who are fatherless. There's a lot of talk out there at the moment about toxic masculinity, right? In terms of men being macho and needing to show their strength and, push women down as a way of, toxic masculinity. We talk a lot about what toxic masculinity is, I guess, in pop culture. But, what we don't talk about enough, I guess, is what is good masculinity. We talk about fatherlessness. How can we encourage people to be, take masculinity in a positive direction and be good male role models?
All I know is, from what I see, is that we have lost that masculinity. We've lost that ability to be men. Through changes of the environment and scenery and culture, we seem to have lost the ability to understand and know what it's like to be a man. I work with families and children who don't have fathers, but they're raised by uncles, who are gang-patched drug dealings, and they've never known what it's like to be a father. And I think that's one of our failures, in fact, that recognizing that and be able to do something to alleviate some of that issues of teaching our young men how to be young men and how to be fathers, how to be a man. And so,
I mean, presumably some of the men that you talk to in prison, some of them are fathers.
yeah.
How do you find that sort of connection with them? Like, how easy is it to talk to them about fatherhood?
They've got so much stories to tell, of their upbringing, the same as me, and the reason why they're there. And some, they recognize the fact that they're there because of the issues that they faced when they were growing up, and that is really what comes down to, and the lack of that male role model of a father. I grew up in an alcoholic background where my mother gets beaten up pretty much every payday. And so I learned from there that that's how you treat women. And so I didn't do that. I didn't, thank God I didn't end up in that situation, but I do know that when you grow up in an environment, which I've seen with many, is that that's exactly what you will end up doing. It's a very sad one for me because I do work with young men who don't have dads, and they don't know how to be a man. They don't know how. So I had to be that person to show them that this is how this is what a man does. Responsibility, teaching them about responsibility as a man. I live my life so that they can see in me something that they can learn. And also, when I have the opportunity, when they give me the opportunity, I can speak to them about what's like to be a father, what's like to be a man, and also to give them as much tools that they need, that they can learn, and maintain that relationship.
And it brings me to another question, which is around, the benefits of what you're doing with the canoes, right? Because, when you look at it, creating something, I think they say the same part of the brain that is involved in creating is also what's involved in destroying things, right? It's like the same part of the brain.
Yeah.
And that's why I wonder if there's that's where the value is in a program like a canoe building, because you're taking that destructive energy. And I think we talked about this a little bit before.
Well, I guess
it's
a creative way to. It takes a lot of thinking.
It's an outlet.
Yeah, it takes a lot of thinking and creativity. How in a negative way, how to do ram raids, and so there's a lot of creative thinking, how to go about in achieving that. I guess, like what you said, is the same part of the brain and used to be creative, because there's a lot of creativity that have been used wrongly.
So I think what people don't understand, or I don't know, people really loosely understand, is that, there's that saying that the devil makes work of idle hands.
Exactly.
And I think programs like this, like I said, it's more than just some old guy doing woodwork with kids.
Exactly.
It's like, it's reducing youth crime, it's increasing education, it's increasing cultural connections. Yeah. It's, it's going to increase. I'd bet money that programs like this would increase educational economic opportunities for young people, because they're simply more engaged in doing something that's productive. And
that is my motto, is keep them busy. Keep them occupied doing fun things. They won't have time to think about it. The reason why I support my daughter and my son into the hip-hop dance is because, well, I didn't see it at first. I was very dead against dance, and dance to me was from my old school, and said, "What? That's what." And I said those not very nice words to my son Billy, because Billy came to me and said, "Dad, I'm going to do dance." I paid for him to do music, and then he came to me and said he's going to do dance. Oh, I hit the roof. I said some words that weren't very nice back then, but I decided to follow it from a distance. And what I saw, I was shocked. I thought, I've never seen so many young people, and you know, girls and guys, and they were passionate. And I saw something different. I saw my perspective on the dance was what I see in the movies, and it wasn't positive. But what I saw with the hip hop, I said, well, so I decided to support Billy. Sold my motorcycle and paid for the mirrors and the equipment that he needs to do the mixing, and that's how hip hop started in New Zealand.
Wait, so you started the alternative education and you started hip hop in New Zealand?
Yeah, my son, and so he put together and pulled some friends together, and then started dancing, and I got more and more dragged into it, and I was hooked. I saw something that I've never seen before.
Because that's how we've connected, me and you, is because I used to dance with your daughter.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really interesting thing with dance, because we talk about this creative versus destructive sort of as an outlet, right? Because I think one of the main styles of dance that your daughter does is crump, right? And I met her and her partner, and they're both big in the crump scene. Yeah. And to an outside person, crump looks quite violent, right? Dance. It's a bit crazy because it's a dance battle, right? That's what it is. But it's this really great environment, and there's so much energy in it, and you see these young people and they're just throwing themselves on the dance floor, and it's completely a creative outlet, and there's no violence because it's just dance. And it's crazy the amount of benefits there are in having engagement with youth in the dance space.
To me, it's a bait that'll reach a certain type of fish. Not all the fish that goes for that bait, but there are fish who just love that bait.
And I think one of the, if you started hip hop in New Zealand, amazing, because we created some of the best dance crews around absolutely. The world in South Auckland.
Yeah, and the history of Street Dance New Zealand that we started, and it became Hip Hop International. Connect up with the world. I went the first time we went.
Did Hip Hop International start from New Zealand?
No. We connect up with Hip Hop International in the US when they were just beginning at that point. I think they were only been going for 2-3 years. Small, very small. So we rocked up in 2005. Billy and 8 of his crew members.
Was that Desire?
Yeah, that's Desire. I wasn't. I didn't want, because dance to me. But what I saw, it was attracting men and boys and girls, and it's vibrant. It's it caught my attention, and I thought, I want to support that. That's why I support my son, and Billy and Enola established Street Dance New Zealand that take the hip hop to a next level, to the world, and then the rest is history. So it started at the back of our house.
Of course it did.
A lot of people don't know that. I spent a lot of money to help them with their first trip to the US because
you created the New Zealand hip hop scene.
So
of course you did.
We went to the first US competition in LA. We have no idea. We were fresh. To go into an environment where we have no idea what was happening. So I went there first, and to familiarize with it. And I hired a vehicle, and so I put money into a lot of my personal money because there was no funds then. We were just fundraising ourselves, and we went there and caught the attention of the hip hop people, of the Americans. They said to me, "Where the hell did you guys come from? We've never seen that before." That was his words, the guy, the director, Howard Swartz. Yeah, he said to me, "We've never seen that style before. This is," and I said, "No, you haven't seen that yet. We haven't seen anything yet. We'll be back." And so we went back the next year, and that's when Desire came second in the competition, and then
in the world.
Yeah, in the world. And from there, pretty much the Hip Hop New Zealand skyrocketed, Yeah,
I
right
remember
throughout the
that.
country.
That's probably around, the time when I was like, oh yeah, I want to start
that's
doing
right,
hip hop.
because it was big back then, and not only that, but we influenced Australia as well. So Billy and Knowles' friends, they're running the Australian comp. So we influence a lot of people from way back then to where they are now, including Paris Goebel, and she has some private lesson with Billy, and so they, we built. So that's one of the things that we did.
So that's the thing, right? Is that you start off by connecting with young people.
Yeah.
Again, it could turn us into it's kind of like almost social enterprise in that model of getting young people upskilled and get them to upskill other young people, and then you create business value. That's quite a big.
Well, if you look at hip hop now in New Zealand, and see where some of the people that connect with Desire Group back in the days, and that group of hip hop. A lot of them has gone around the world and has done great. And one is in Germany. He invited Knowles and Ken over to Germany, paid for, because he's done well, and he's gone to Germany and started because he's got German background, Samoan German. So he ended up in Germany. He found some funds to pay, and he's done well. So, and it's the same with other places. So,
this is why I'm like, when people write off, things like the arts, right? There's like so much value in it. Because my parents are the same. They're like, and I was like, I want to be a dancer, and my parents are like, no.
Well, again, it's that old school thinking, and my argument to my son was that is that going to put food on your table?
Exactly. That's what my parents said.
Because to me, what, dance? You want to make money out of dance? Well, anyway, my son, he just finished teaching in school in Canberra. They pay him $150 an hour to teach in the school. And he's been there for 5 years. He just quit this year before he came home. And so, this you make money out of it.
There's money to be made.
There's money to be made. So... Yes, I'm not as closed up, so I'm a bit more open to anything that works, anything that reaches youth. That's my goal, is that whatever bait that'll work to get youth, I'll use, even if I don't like the bait. Yeah, but that's what caught my attention, is the fact that, wow, there's so many young people turning up to the first concert that I went in Hamilton. I was amazed at the amount of youth that was there. And because I'm into youth, I said, boy, I missed this one. So
will we ever see you on the dance floor?
Okay, so
will we see you on the dance floor, Sully?
I'm not sure. Never say no.
All right, so we have enough time for one last question. What is the best book you've ever read?
I'm not a good reader. I've read books, and I've read books and stories of great men and women. I am in a book called Salt of the Earth, and it was only me and Michael Jones in New Zealand, but it's written of all the people around the world that has made changes in their communities. And I read that book, and it was really very, very challenging and touching, and of what other people has done around the world.
Like the power of community organizations and community icons such as yourself.
Yeah, I like books of people's personal stories from rags to riches, kind of similar to mine. So talk about that. My kids, my family are trying to get me to write a book, so I've started a little bit and put my book together and tell my story in a book.
Oh, I look forward to reading it.
Yeah. But the book that I read the most, that I like the most, is my Bible. It's a manual of life that I get my inspiration from. So that's the only book that I can read almost every day.
Do you have a favorite lesson, I guess, from the Bible?
I'm not alone. He's always on my side. He's always with me. That's why my fire keeps going. If I'm alone, my fire's already dead a long time ago. But because of that, he's with me all the time. that keeps my fire burning 24/7. So, yeah, that's what I like the most, the fact that no matter where I am, no matter what difficult situation I'm in, knowing that someone is there with me. And I have been through many situations where I have no idea how to get out of them. But knowing that he's there all the time, and I think that's the reason why I've lasted this long and still continuing. So I have no intention of slowing down and stop.
Yeah, what's retirement?
Yeah, I'm 72 this year, and I'm only just beginning.
Oh, wow, you do not look 72. Your skin's amazing.
Life is just beginning.
Well, thank you so much for coming on this podcast.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Revolving Door Syndrome acknowledges Māori as tangata whenua and Te Tiriti o Waitangi partners in Aotearoa, New Zealand. We recognise the inequities and challenges faced by Indigenous and vulnerable groups and acknowledge our duty to work towards closing the gap.